Hey everybody, Quantum back here again with a new style of video. This time we're going to be using Tabletop Simulator to bring you some Emerald Amber discard gameplay, going up against my friend here who helped me set up Tabletop Simulator, so shoutouts to him. But he's playing Amber Ruby Mufasa. Now, he's preparing for the Toronto Disney Lorcana Challenge, the DLC, that's happening, I guess, in August. Unfortunately, I won't be going. Again, for those of you that don't know, just a lot of life things happening, and it's hard for me to spend time away from my daily responsibilities, but that will hopefully change in the next couple of months, and I'll be able to bring you some real life content and maybe even go to some DLCs in the future. But for now, I'm just trying to help my friend out because I can play from home. We win the die roll here and have opted to go first for game 2, which is probably timestamped in the video. He will be going first, so if you wonder how this deck is on the draw, you can see that. But this is going to be, in my opinion, the de facto way to play discard if you were like a really high up on the Emerald Steel Bucky discard deck and you're like, oh no, Bucky's getting errated and it's going away. Well, in my opinion, this is the better control variant, even when Bucky discard was around. The reason why this deck may not have been so popular is because it does kind of get hard checked by a lot of the, basically Emerald Steel. Thanks to Ursula, Deceiver of All, double singing songs, they can really put a number of hurt, I guess, on your board that you try to develop with Amber Emerald. It's still a very strong deck, and in my opinion, it might be one of the strongest decks, at least initially, moving into Shimmering Skies. Because what you're going to see here is how we're able to just utilize a number of different card draw engines between Prince John and Diablo and Ariel bouncing to recast off Muses and stuff like that in order to keep our options open and have a lot of available lines of play to react to different situations. So here on turn 3, you can see me play out the Ariel instead of the Prince John because normally, a nice curve would be turn 3 play Prince John, turn 4 cast You Have Forgotten Me, discard 2 cards off the opponent's hand, you draw 2. But the way you really want to approach discard is you want to be able to choke out your opponent. So, they're likely playing into a line of play, a very specific line of play. So for example, my opponent here, what they're telegraphing to me is they probably have a Rapunzel that's ready to come down. They have a Mulan and a Gothel on board, both prime targets for the Rapunzel for them to refill their hand. Can I discard the final few cards in their hand, which is 4 now, before they can drop the Rapunzel next turn, right? Because if I make them discard 3, they're going to keep the Rapunzel still, and they'll be able to play it out. This Gaston coming down also represents a threat, because on 3 ink, next turn they'll be on 4. They might be able to ink and then Gaston drop a Medusa early, which represents great value for them, taking out either the Ariel Singer or the Diablo. They know I have an Under the Sea, which I could sing now to wipe out the opponent's board as well, preventing them from drawing off of the Rapunzel. But honestly, in this situation, Rapunzel drawing cards for them doesn't really feel that threatening to me, because I'll have my Diablo exerted, and unless they're playing Teeth and Ambitions, they can't play the Rapunzel and a Brawl. They're 1 ink short still, because they could Gaston and pay 2 ink for the Rapunzel, leaving them with 2 ink if they ink for turn next turn, meaning that they're 1 ink short for the 3 needed for Brawl. They'll only have 2. So I feel pretty comfortable just leaving this board and not singing the Under the Sea in this situation. I want them to commit more, and I want to be able to draw more off of their own Rapunzel, drawing them 3. Because while, the Amber Ruby deck has better top end, right, but having access to the Ruby cards, we know that Amber Ruby Mufasa doesn't play Be Prepared, so I don't really have too much to worry about. Yes, they could be playing a Sisu, which could eventually come down and do significant damage to my board, but if I play this game correctly, I should have way more resources than my opponent, because my deck just has way more draw engine. Amber Ruby Mufasa right now, in my opinion, really does depend on you seeing the Rapunzel in order to win the game. If you don't see the Rapunzel, you just don't get enough gas in order to continue dropping threats. So here you can see them use the Gaston, and they do indeed drop the Rapunzel. I draw 3 when they draw 3 off healing the Mother Gothel here. And the last turn, because I did draw into that You Have Forgotten Me, I opted to develop the Prince John and the Queen, hoping that I can draw into a Shift Queen at some point as well. But in addition to the Rapunzel here, they're going to drop a Lumiere, which is actually pretty strong because they know I have that Under the Sea. So my opponent played it fairly well, trying to play around the potential Under the Sea wiping out their board, because now everything is over 2 strength except for the Rapunzel and the Lumiere itself, which means if I casted the Under the Sea, only the Rapunzel and Lumiere would go to the bottom of the deck. The other 3 characters would stay on board. However, drawing as many cards as we have, we did indeed draw into the Kita, which is going to nerf the board by -3 strength. strength, making everything now very susceptible to that Under the Sea, which you know for sure we are going to sing using the Diablo and the Aerial, which will absolutely wipe out the opponent's board here, just speeding up this footage or cutting it out. Which, by the way, guys, this tabletop simulator, it might be just because it's the first couple of times that I'm using it. It did take a long time to edit. It took me multiple days, working on it an hour here, an hour there, in order to get this video up. So if you do enjoy this content, please make sure you drop a like and maybe even leave a comment, just because this does take a lot of time to do. It's why I haven't posted a video as frequently as I have in the past, because I'm still trying to get familiar with this software and use it efficiently for you guys, so that there's not a lot of like dead air and dead time of like nothing happening on board or something. Anyways, after the Under the Sea, we just kind of finish off our turn. The opponent develops, I think that's a Prince Eric, and they've got 4 cards in hand. But we are feeling pretty good because we have the established board state. Like I said, we don't really have to worry too much about a Be Prepared, right? I mean, maybe a Sisu 8-drop comes down and wipes our board, but aside from that, we're still far away from it. We're feeling pretty confident. So I Bruno sing with the Aerial. I sing Bruno with the Aerial for a random discard, and we end up hitting the Prince Eric there. And then because I sung a song, because I discarded a card from the opponent's hand with the Bruno, the Prince John triggers for me to draw 1. That's what you saw there. And then with the Muses being able to bounce back a card with 2 or less strength, I bounce back my own Aerial. So like I was saying earlier, this is another interaction that you can use with this deck. Like just constantly bouncing your Aerial and replaying it not only protects it after it sings, but it also allows you to scry 4 again. So that means you can always hopefully have a song, a discard song, a control song, a Bruno, an Under the Sea, a Sudden Chill, Bare Necessities, you name it. You always have something that you can generate some kind of advantage through, right? Because you're getting 2-for-1s all the time with this deck, and you're going to be decimating some of your opponent's resources, as you see there with like either the Bruno, the Under the Sea for board wipes, or discarding what's left in their hand with things like Sudden Chill, Bare Necessities, etc., right? So now the opponent is on 3 cards in hand. They drop a Medusa to out my Aerial, recognizing that that is a huge threat, which they are correct. By the way, guys, like Aerial, in my opinion, like at least right now, I thought this card would have got power crept already, but it's just a very solid card for Amber, and I just picked up my last 3 foil ones. Paid a little bit more than I would have liked to, at around $15 Canadian each, but I really think that they're worth it because, this card is just insanely good in my opinion right now. And moving into Shimmering Skies, I think it will continue to just be an incredible card, but we'll wait and see if Amber is a threat, because we haven't seen Amber really all that much in Ursula's Return. I make a mistake here. I cast my Painting the Roses Red thinking that it would have reduced the Medusa, but it doesn't. It only reduces it to 3, not to 2. So we drew a card off of the Painting the Roses, but then I just quest with the Queen, reduced the Medusa down to 0 strength, and now I have to play another song here. So I sung the Painting the Roses, I believe, with the Diablo. Now I'm going to hard cast the Sudden Chill, which is going to force the opponent to discard, which is going to let me draw 1. They discarded Chernobog, which is a card that could actually do work against me here, for sure. Can't really reduce a 9 strength character down, right, with Akita. I'm going to have to Bruno it, basically. But I draw off the Prince John, discarding, or off the opponent discarding a card off the Sudden Chill. Then we hard cast the You Have Forgotten Me, which again makes the opponent discard 2. I draw 2. So I think they opted to keep the Medusa in hand. They discarded Tremaine. I didn't see the other card there. But you can just see the devastation between reducing the strength of characters, using Muses to bounce it back to hand, and then forcing discards off of Sudden Chills and You Have Forgotten Me's. Like, it's just way too powerful. The opponent redrops their Medusa, taking out my Diablo. I forgot to put the 1-drop in the discard as well. They ink, I think, a Mulan there, so they have nothing in hand, only a Medusa on field. And look at the difference in the resource game here. Like, there's 0% chance we lose this now. So if you're ever in a situation like this, to save time, guys, you should probably just scoop. But yeah, we quest with Queen. We just cast the Painting the Roses so that we can bounce the Medusa. I think I have to tell my opponent it goes to your hand, not to your discard right away. But he's like, you're discarding it anyways, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, probably. And I drew the Sudden Chill, so I didn't have to waste my You Have Forgotten Me. So I just paid 2. Hard cast the Sudden Chill, make him discard, draw a card off Prince John. Man, could you imagine if you had like multiple Prince Johns in rotation here? You'd just be drawing so many cards. It would be absolutely crazy. We're going to pay 3 for yet another aerial. Look at the top 4, hit a bare necessities. My opponent's like, yeah, like, this is over. I think he's just, taking a look at what his next draw was. It was going to be a Sisu 4-drop, just not enough to just do anything against us at this point in time. So that's going to do it for game 1. I think I'm just showing him what I had in my hand. I had like multiple Under the Seas, Diablos, You Have Forgotten Me's. Like, I had answers to whatever it is he was going to draw into anyways, right? The Under the Sea, guys, I'm telling you, that card is insane. Let's go ahead and move on to game 2, though. So in game number 2, I am going to be on the draw. My opponent is going to be on the play. So we'll see if Amber Ruby Mufasa has a better time in this matchup here, because it is a very tempo focused deck and it has a significant advantage when it is on the play, I will say that. But when you're playing a control deck, the nice thing about it is you have very specific modes and lines of play that allow you to claw back tempo. You will suffer in the beginning for sure, but if you can stabilize, you'll play your control game and you will beat out the other like aggro focus or tempo focused strategies. So turn 1, we drop Diablo. Unfortunately, we do not have a 3-cost Diablo to follow up with on the following turns, but that's okay. The opponent starts off very strong with a Mulan into a Piglet, which means this Piglet's going to be questing for 3 next turn. You could argue that I should just crash my Diablo 1-drop into their Mulan because I know I don't have a Diablo of my own to shift, and I don't want to risk the opponent getting into a Rapunzel and getting a free draw 2. Our turn 2 play is super weak in hard casting a Painting the Roses Red for no value other than drawing a card and then just passing turn. And this is another reason why it was a mistake. So potentially this was a mistake on my opponent's side and my side. So my opponent quests with the Mulan. Arguably, they should not have quested with Mulan so that they can proc Piglet next turn. Because if I challenge that exerted Mulan and take it out, now your Piglet doesn't quest for 3, right? So getting that 1 extra lore by questing with Mulan to expose it to being challenged by this Diablo, in my opinion, from my opponent's perspective, was wrong. And then me being stupid and not challenging the Mulan to prevent the Piglet from questing for 3 is also wrong, because if I would have taken out the Mulan, they could follow up with the Sisu, but then they don't really have anything else to play, most likely, in order to make the Piglet quest for 3. So at this point, it doesn't matter now. I guess I'm just holding out to draw a Diablo, but the odds are pretty slim. So again, not smart play on my end here with this deck. Looking back at this, I definitely should have taken out that Mulan. We're going to end up paying 3 for a Prince John after the turn before paying 3 for the Ariel. But now we're going to be able to at least slow the opponent down a little bit. Sing Bruno with the Ariel there and force the discard. So I just roll, 1, which means it's the first card. So we end up discarding the Mufasa. My opponent was like, yeah, that's fine, because you're just going to bounce the Mufasa back and make me discard it anyway, so I don't really proc Mufasa in this deck, most likely. That's what I was kind of explaining to you guys in the first match there. So we do eventually use the Diablo to take out the opponent's Mulan. It's just too little too late. Like, I let them get all that lore for no reason. So looking back at it, huge misplay on my end. But this is why you test, so you can spot your mistakes and be like, yeah, like, I have to be able to see what lines of play the opponent is going for with certain decks and understand where the disruption aspect comes in for me to slow the opponent's lines down. So the opponent continues to quest for 3 with this Piglet, which is a pretty big threat. They're going to drop a Gaston here, but they only have 2 cards in hand. And one of the nice things about playing a discard deck, they are still pretty toxic, and these shouldn't really exist in Lorcana in my opinion, because it's very unfun to play against. For a player base that is largely going to be casual still. Regardless, though, when they're on the play, they don't get that extra card from being on the draw, which means it's easier for you to actually out their resources to a certain degree, right? Because it's 1 less card you need to out. It's 1 less chance that they draw into like their draw engines, etc. So you can see we play the Daisy Duck, and I opt to put this in my build because I do like having the more like more singers for the Under the Sea, because I do play 4 in my build. The card is just too good not to play 4 of, in my opinion. And Daisy being a 4-cost card provides a lot of value in being able to be used with something like the Muses in order to sing Under the Sea, let's say, which is also a 4-cost card. But yeah, we just challenge and out the opponent's board, make them discard. They have nothing in hand, so they top deck a Minnie Mouse, which is always good to see. They're going to use Gaston to take out my Ariel, and despite them getting quite far ahead in the lore and potentially being able to close the game out very quickly, we really have to focus on the control aspect in order to stop the opponent from kind of questing for game. Because as you can see here, as I zoom in, they're on 15, we're on 0, but we've stabilized now. So now we can start to try to play our game. This Minnie Mouse, you can argue, should they quest with it? Should they try to challenge with it? That is, yeah, a decision that is really tough to make, because I think if they quest, they leave themselves vulnerable to me using the cards on board to sing songs, and this player knows like this deck wants to sing, so you have to out my singers. But at the same time, like, do you just risk it and say, I'm just gonna push for like game, just every character I drop? I don't think the latter is the correct line though, because I will eventually set up to a state where I'll be able to bounce everything you play. So I think trying to control the board is kind of what you have to do. So yeah, you can see here that the Mini ends up crashing into the Daisy. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, yeah, let me use the Queen first quest, reduce the Minnie Mouse quest with Diablo, so I just don't take the extra point of damage on Diablo. Yeah, I forgot to ready up all my stuff there, but yeah, everything should be, all my characters should be exerted, which I will probably do in a second. But I pay 3 for a Diablo, 3 drop, no song to discard to shift it onto the other Diablo. But this is fine. The opponent on the Mother Gothel, unless they top deck a Rapunzel here, and even if, well, if they do, I don't draw off the Diablo, but if they top deck a Rapunzel, they can't really play any other interactions in the turn. I don't have any discard in my hand, so whatever they draw with Rapunzel could potentially be threatening. Regardless, though, the odds that they top deck 1 Rapunzel is probably pretty low, which it is. They draw, they crash their Mother Gothel and into the Queen, because obviously the Queen is a huge threat, and then they pass. So this tells me they probably drew something that's uninkable for turn, because there's no way you would risk keeping a card in your hand here. You just want to play out everything you draw. But again, being a heavy discard deck, you keep them low on resources. They only have 5 ink, and they don't have access to their top end, being a Ruby deck that really wants access to their top end. So we play a Muses out for 4 because we don't really have anything else, and we just quest with the Diablos. The opponent inks, I think that was a Mulan there, and then is able to play a Madame Medusa. I don't know if I just drew for the Diablo for the opponent's turn. I assume I did, but maybe I didn't. Anyways, we're going to draw for turn now. And drawing the Queen here is also pretty good. The Queen is just such an insanely good card. It's really interesting to see like how good this card and how much better this card seems to be getting over time. And I've seen Amber Emerald decks without the Queen, and I think the card is just way too valuable, especially with the Muses, in order not to play. Yes, like having Kita is great, but having Kita and the Queen is just way better. So here you can see the opponent, underwhelming top decks, gets another Mulan here, knows full well that this Queen is going to put in a shift into the opponent's board if they try to quest with this Medusa. Taking a look at their discard here. Do they opt to challenge my Diablo? Yes, they do. Instead of questing, because again, they're only questing for 1. They want to potentially force me to use up additional resources, because if they don't challenge with the Medusa there, when the Queen quests, it reduces Medusa to 0 and it pumps up the Diablo to 5, which means my Diablo takes out the Medusa for free. Whereas this way, at least it forces the exertion of my Muses. So if the opponent top decks a Maui or something, maybe they can take out the Muses, but probably not now that they see I have a second one here. And the Queen is probably the more valuable target still anyways, but the opponent is in a really rough spot. Despite almost getting to 20 right at the start of the game here, they're really hurting for lines of like viable lines of play that they can utilize. Don't know why my Queen is dead now because they top deck Lumia, which makes Mulan a 3/4 body, which means that it does trade out perfectly into the Queen. So that was a decent top deck for them, but again, they're staring down 2 Muses. I just drew a third one, but with my hand combination, I don't really have anything to play really, because I don't want to waste this Under the Sea, obviously. I don't want to waste this Kita, and I want to save the Sun and Chill for when I can get kind of value off of it, right? I mean, the opponent has no cards in hand right now. I could just cast Sun and Chill to bounce the Lumiere back to hand, but then I can't make them discard it. So this was a big surprise. And why I think the Goofy might actually be a card that's really being overlooked right now. I also picked up 4 copies of this because I do think this card is undervalued at the moment. Here they drop the Goofy. They challenge into one of my exerted Muses, and they go to 18 because they go to 17 off the Goofy challenging from 15 to 17, right? Because gain 2 lore off Goofy. Then they quest with Lumiere. Now Now we're at a point in the game where if they top deck another Goofy, I lose the game. So I cannot quest with anything. Because if I quest with anything and leave anything exerted that's not evasive, they can top deck a Goofy and win the game off of just dropping the Goofy and challenging, right? Now, thankfully, my opponent wasn't on 4 copies of Goofy. And he told me that in the match. I'm like, bro, don't tell me that, because I mean, I guess it didn't really matter because I'm still going to have to quest to go for game anyways, but that's like a win condition where the opponent could potentially clutch the game out. Similar to how Goats and Spellbooks, Queen's Castles, things like that have been very effective in the meta throughout Lorcana's short history to win games kind of out of the blue. Well, it's mainly only Goat coming down out of the blue. You know, you kind of see Spellbook and stuff coming. But I mean, a top deck Spellbook can win you the game just like a top deck Goat could, right? But a top deck Goofy in this scenario could win my opponent the game. So here you see me having to deal with the Goofy for sure. So I was able to reduce the strength of the Goofy somehow. I don't see what I played there. But yeah, we sing Under the Sea. We played out the aerial. We've got 3 Muses on board. So unless the opponent top decks a Goofy here, like, we should still be in control. But yeah, that Goofy coming down off the top randomly really surprised me, and I was like, oh, that's a win con for you for sure. But again, good thing that I saved the Under the Sea for the right time, right? And I had to get that Goofy off board. I could have challenged into it too, to be fair, but yeah, I think using the Under the Sea there was all right. We do have a Bruno as backup in order to take out a big threat. The Gaston here I'm not too worried about, because even if they top deck a Stitch, they won't draw 2. They do draw a Mufasa, which would normally be amazing, but because I have the Bruno, we're feeling pretty good here. So again, the opponent looking at the board state thinking, do I quest to 19? It's kind of neither here nor there, because if I can't get to 20, it doesn't matter. So they opt to use the Gaston and take out my damaged Muses, which is fair, but I mean, I have 4 Muses on board, right? So it's kind of just like, pick your poison. These Muses are just questing power at this point. I draw the Under the Sea and I show the opponent my top deck. Not that I needed it, because he was like, oh, you're going to wipe my board now? And I'm like, yeah, but I have a better line than wasting this Under the Sea. So Under the Sea just represents even more value. We're going to Bruno back the Mufasa and force the discard, and then because we played Bruno, which is a song, we're going to use Muses to bounce back the Gaston, and then we're going to hard cast a Sudden Chill in order to make them discard that Gaston. So we wipe the opponent's board, still retaining our Kita and Under the Sea combination. They top deck a Surfer Stitch, which they can't even play now because we've outed their Gaston. They don't have enough ink, and yeah, we're just going to quest to like 19 or 18, whatever, next turn, and then just go for game from there. Just showing my opponent what my next couple of draws were, what I had in my hand. So we had the coverage for whatever the opponent was going to play. A slow control game. Let me know what you think if you've made it this far in the video. Thank you again for watching though. Quantum is out.